To create a Vue project, we'll be working from the command line. On macOS and Linux, we'll use the terminal application. If you're using Windows, you can use PowerShell or Windows Terminal. The commands we'll be using are the same regardless of your operating system. Before creating our first Vue application, let's create a dedicated folder where we'll keep all of our Vue projects. This isn't required, but it's a good habit because it helps us keep our development environment organized. Next, I'll move into that directory. Every project we create in this course will live inside this workspace folder. Now it's time to create our first Vue project. We're using the official Vue project generator. This tool will automatically create the project structure, configure the build tools, and prepare everything we need to start developing with Vue. If this is your first time running the generator, npm may ask for confirmation before downloading the required package. Simply type Y and press Enter. Next, Vue asks for a project name. This will become the folder name for our application. I'll call it My First Vue Project, but you can choose any name you like. The generator now asks whether we want to use TypeScript. Since this is a beginner-friendly series, we'll keep things simple and use standard JavaScript for now. We can always learn TypeScript later once we're comfortable with the Vue fundamentals. Vue can automatically set up additional features for us right from the start. We'll explore these features in future lessons, so for now we'll leave everything unchecked and press Enter. The generator also offers some experimental features. Since they're not needed for building our first application, we'll skip them and continue. Just press Enter. Finally, Vue asks whether we want to start with example code or a blank project. I'll choose a blank project because I want to build everything from scratch and fully understand each part of the application. Great. Vue has now generated our project structure. The next step is to move into the project directory. Before we can run the application, we need to install its dependencies. The npm install command downloads all packages required by the project and stores them inside the node_modules folder. Once the installation is complete, we can start the development server using npm run dev. This launches our Vue application locally and watches for file changes while we're developing. When the server starts, Vue provides a local URL where the application is running. I'll copy that address and open it in the browser. And there it is. Our very first Vue application is running successfully. At the moment, the page is very simple, but behind the scenes, Vue has already generated a complete project structure for us. In the next part of this episode, we'll explore that structure and learn how all the files work together. We will start by exploring the overall project structure. Let's open our project in a code editor. I'll be using Visual Studio Code, but you can use any editor you prefer. At first glance, there may seem to be a lot of files and folders, but don't worry. As beginners, there are only a few important files and directories we need to understand. Once you know what these do, the rest of the project structure will start to make much more sense. Let's start with the most important folders and files. The node_modules folder contains all packages installed through npm. Vue itself lives here, together with many other dependencies. You should never edit files inside this folder manually. Think of it as downloaded code that your project depends on. The public folder is used for static files. Files placed here are copied directly into the final build without any processing. Typical examples include favicons, images, PDFs, or downloadable files. This is the heart of our Vue application. Almost all of our development work will happen inside the src folder. This file represents the root component of our application. Every Vue application starts here. The content you see in the browser is ultimately rendered through App.vue. The template section contains the HTML structure that Vue renders to the page. This file is the real entry point of our application. When the browser loads our project, main.js executes first. Let's break this down. First, Vue imports the createApp function. Then it imports the app component. After that, Vue creates an application instance. Finally, it mounts the application into an HTML element with the ID of app. You might be wondering where this app element comes from. The answer is inside index.html. This empty div acts as a mounting point. Vue takes everything from app.vue and injects it into this location. This file is one of the most important files in any JavaScript project. Package.json contains information about the project, installed dependencies, and available scripts. The scripts section defines commands we can run. For example, npm run dev starts our development server. The vite.config.js file is used to configure Vite. Vite is the development tool that powers our Vue project. Most of the time, especially when you're starting out, you won't need to modify anything in this file. Now that we've looked at the main files, let's connect the dots and see how a Vue application actually starts. Here's the complete flow. The browser loads index.html. Index.html loads main.js. Main.js creates the Vue application. The application renders app.vue, and app.vue can render additional components. This is the foundation of every Vue application you'll build. In this episode, we created our first Vue project, launched the development server, and explored the most important files and folders. Now that we understand the structure of a Vue application, we're ready to start building our own components. In the next episode, we'll create our first custom Vue component and learn how components work together. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next lesson.